Hi beautiful angels, my name's Leah Fawn aka Leah, and thank you so much for coming back to another one of my videos. Before I start anything, I did finally get a comment about my microphone and I would like to address that just really quick. I'm fully aware that this microphone belongs on a stand and it's completely user error, but I broke it and so that's why I'm holding it. If it bothers you, I'm really sorry, but to me it's just kind of not a big deal. So if that's a deal breaker, I'll see it when I get a new mic, I guess. That aside, I would love to talk to you today about Super Paper Mario, what I love about it, what I remember from childhood about it, and why it's my favorite game ever.
And I'm British.
This video will be absolutely full of spoilers, and this is your warning for that. Super Paper Mario is actually the third game in the Paper Mario series, and it was released by Nintendo, as you may guess, in 2007. And I don't know what it is about 2007, but I guess that's just a theme of when my favorite games came out, because there's this one and The Dog Island, which I made a video about. And then also Fable 2, which I might talk about later. So the first game in the series is just Paper Mario, and then there is Paper Mario the Thousand-Year Door, which I also love, but this is a travesty, I know, but I only played it like last year. I did play the original Paper Mario too, but I prefer this one and I'll get into it. One could argue that Thousand-Year Door might be the best game of all three in general, but I have the most nostalgia and love and memories of Super Paper Mario. My favorite types of games are actually platformers and RPGs, and Super Paper Mario is actually a mix of both, which is kind of no wonder why I like it so much. I think the most unique aspect of the game is that Mario specifically has an ability where he can flip between 2D and 3D, and you use that to find certain like hidden puzzles and items and things like that. This is a very specific memory, but I remember the screen that loads before you play the game. It's this bright blue screen with like the stars and the fire flowers and everything in the background, and it tells you to hold the Wii remote sideways. You hold the remote in this game very similar to how you would if you were playing a different Wii platformer like the new Super Mario Bros., which is another one of my favorite games, but I don't think I'll cover that because there's not really as much of a plot. Now I will get into the plot of this game. So you start out at Mario and Luigi's house, and it's pretty typical. They're just talking about how they're actually having a boring day, and then a terrified Toad comes in, and the Toad is saying that Princess Peach needs to be checked on. It cuts to Bowser planning another kidnapping, as is typical. He's talking to all his minions planning a castle takeover, and then a mysterious new character comes in, and he is wearing a monocle and a cape, and he's in kind of a different art style. I'll put a picture of him, and this is Count Bleck, the main antagonist of the whole game. Everyone is sort of taken in these like point and click prism things, like that tool where if you click the corner and drag it, it forms a square. It has that effect, and then everyone is flipped to a different dimension or just vanished within these squares. It's hard to explain. Princess Peach is in a prism that is like shimmering and rainbow, so everyone disappears, and then Mario wakes up and someone is speaking to him, and it's this rainbow butterfly looking thing, and she introduces herself as Tippy, which is T-I-P-P-I. Tippy explains that she is a pixel, which is sort of like a fairy creature, and they like hover around. Her text boxes are rainbow around the edges, which is just not relevant, but it's like a fun touch. She explains that Count Bleck is going to form something called the Void, and that there isn't much time. She takes you to a town called Flipside, and there's this wizard guy named Merlin. He explains that Mario is the hero of prophecy, and he gives you this item called a pure heart, and I'll put a picture of one right here. They're kind of pretty, and with the pure hearts you must collect them and put them in heart pillars, which are either in plain sight around town or more hidden. The first one's really easy to find. You take an elevator down from the tower that you first arrived in, and then you go up one floor because the elevator takes you all the way down to the second floor, but you need to be on the first floor. And so you're on this first floor and you go all the way to the left, and then there's the heart pillar, and it has this opening that's gray, and you set the pure heart within it, and it shimmers and there's this whole effect, and then a red door appears on that tower where you just came from. Then Merlin gives you something called a return pipe, which is in your very important items tab, and it is like this red pipe, and it kind of looks like a candy cane. It has like red and white pinstriping on the top edge. That item warps you back to that flip side tower where the red door is. After this, there's a cutscene of Count Bleck in his castle, and his castle is black and white, like very monochromatic, and there are these, I guess the best way to say it is like shelves. It's where his minions are perched, and they all just kind of hang out in this room, and that's where these conversations are happening. I'll put an image of it right here because I'm not explaining that very well. So he's talking to his minions about the void forming, and his minions, there is one who is bulky. I'll put pictures of them so I don't have to describe them, but he's like this Scottish guy. His name is O'Chunks. And then there is Mimi, who is my favorite, by the way, and we don't get to see what she looks like yet because in the first scene she's actually impersonating O'Chunks because she is a shapeshifter. And then there's Dementio, who even if you don't know about this game, you probably have seen him at least. He's like this purple and yellow theme jester guy. And there's Nastasia, but she is Count Bleck's like assistant, and she is next to him rather than on her own little shelf. They end up talking amongst themselves in this scene, and then eventually decide to send O'Chunks out to defeat the heroes, or Mario. After this cutscene, it's back to Mario, and he goes through the red door that just appeared, and he still has Tippy the Pixel behind him. She just kind of floats and talks to him. She also has this ability where, you know, you hold the remote sideways, but if you point it at the screen, it will pause everything, and she can light things up red, and if you click on it, then she'll tell you about whatever it is you clicked on. And this also comes in handy in certain puzzles because you can point and click to reveal things that are hidden. In the first door, you go into Lineland, and this is more of the platforming and puzzle aspect of the game, and you traverse this place where it's familiar, there's like Goombas, but there's also new enemies that are in more of the art style that Flipside is. It's very interesting how they combine certain art styles. You'll see in the pictures I put in, but Mario looks pretty typical for Paper Mario. But there's a thing like a squiglet, which is more in the Flipside style, and they're little pink things. Mario goes into this house that's at the end of Lineland Road, which is chapter 1, and it looks empty, but then you use Tippy's pointing ability to find a hidden door. He goes in there, and there's this other wizard guy who looks not exactly like Merlin, but in the same vibe, and so you talk to him, and his name's Bestovius, and he wants you to pay him like this nominal fee to teach Mario the ability to flip from 2D to 3D. And you at this point don't really have that many coins yet, probably, but you can't pay that, and if you keep talking to him, he'll settle for taking all the coins in your pocket. And I think I remember you can haggle with him more, but I didn't, and so he would just take all the coins in the pocket. But anyway, he gives Mario the ability to flip from 2D to 3D, and you do this by hitting the A button on the Wii remote. And in this mode, there's like things that appear in 3D that don't in 2D. I'll put a picture of the 2D mode and the 3D mode next to each other so you can see what I'm talking about. And after you meet Bestovius, the only other sort of notable thing other than the platforming and puzzle aspects is that you get another pixel alongside Tippy, and he is sort of shaped like a hand. I'll put a picture, and his name is Throw. You can use the 1 button to use the pixel's abilities, and you can just like grab stuff and throw things with him, as his name may imply. When you get an additional pixel, Tippy's still there. He just like follows behind Tippy. The rest of the red door contains a sort of desert theme, which is similar to the original Paper Mario, and then there's Ruins level, which is also similar. And in the second chapter, there's a place called Yold Town, where you talk to another character, and his name is Old Man Watchit, and he has to give the okay to set up this bridge, and that's all part of the puzzle. At some point in the red door level, you do run across Chunks, and he's pretty easy to defeat when you have throw, because you literally just pick him up, throw him, and jump on his head a few times. But there's actually two bosses in this level. There's Chunks, and then at the very end when you are in the ruins, you meet Fractale, who is actually one of my favorite bosses. I'll put a picture of him because he's just cool looking. He's like this robot dragon thing, and he is programmed to only let the hero of prophecy through, which Mario is, but Dementio pops in and like kind of scrambles him, like reprograms him, I suppose, and then he starts attacking Mario, and so Mario has to beat him, and it's kind of a pain, but when you have the strategy like I do, it's really easy. You just gotta like watch his patterns. After you beat Fractale, you meet Merlumina, who is one of Merlin's ancestors, and she gives you the second pure heart. Then the chapter ends. And after this, there's another scene, and it's not a cutscene because you do play, but it's also, I'll tell you what I mean. You play as Princess Peach in this part, but you're back in Count Bleck's castle, and Princess Peach is watching as Koopas get brainwashed by Anastasia. Looks like she tases them, and then their eyes go red for a second, and they have like little sunglasses on, and then they're like brainwashed to be loyal to Count Bleck instead of Bowser. Princess Peach is watching this, and then she tries to find an escape, only to end up at a dead end where Anastasia comes and corners her. But instead of getting brainwashed, another one of those little boxes appears around her, and suddenly she just vanishes. That is where that scene ends. After this, there's another cutscene, but it's not visual, it's text-based. There's a human and a member of the Tribe of Darkness, and we don't really know what that is yet, but they're having an interaction where the member of the Tribe of Darkness was injured and the human is helping him. There really isn't too much information in addition at this point. After you get back to Flipside, you're in Merlin's house again, and this town person comes in and he is freaked out, and he is saying that a girl fell from the sky. And you go, and it turns out to be Princess Peach, and she will not wake up. And so you end up having to go to this place in Flipside where it's like a chef. I believe there's something like this in Paper Mario 2, but I could be misremembering that. Her name is Saffron. Her place is called Sweet Smiles, and you bring her a fire burst, and she makes this item called a spicy soup, which you go and feed to Peach, and it's so spicy that she ends up waking up and saying that she had a dream about the most delicious food. Princess Peach wakes up and you all are talking to Merlin, and she decides to come with you. And I really like this part of the game, but there's like a party system, so you can switch between playing as Princess Peach and Mario now. And you need certain characters for certain abilities in the game, but anytime I can, I love to be Princess Peach. And she has extra abilities. Like, Mario can flip to 3D, but Princess Peach can use her parasol and glide, and she can also crouch down and use her parasol as a shield. It's very good if you want to play defensively. You place the heart in the next heart pillar, which you have to use Peach to float over these platforms to get to it, and then I'm smiling because then the orange door opens, and that is my favorite part, my favorite chapter in the entire game, so I'm very excited to talk about that. So in chapter 2, which is the orange door, you start in Gloam Valley, which is a bog, and it's pretty. It reminds me of an orange dreamsicle, which is very odd, but I'll put a picture of the level so you know what I'm talking about. And this is more like puzzle platform shenanigans. Also in Gloam Valley, you get an additional pixel named Boomer, who is just a bomb. You hit one and he sizzles and then blows up. And you can also hit one again while he's in bomb form and make him blow up earlier. And then you go to Merly's mansion, and it is this like spooky mansion, you know, and you're around the outskirts of it, and there's some hidden stuff, so if you're playing, I recommend looking around before you go in. But then you go in, and there are these weird blocky guard dog type creatures, and also a little maid girl who's green and has little pigtails, and she's actually why I am having a hairstyle moment. I'll get into her, but I'll put a picture of her. And you have to traverse these like booby-trapped rooms in the mansion, and the maid girl will tell you, oh, you're here to see Merle, go to this specific door and don't go to any of the other ones. And she just gets like, she just escalates pretty fast. She seems to have a temper. But then eventually you get to this room with spikes in it, and you have to flip to 3D, jump on top of them, go up, and there's a treasure chest with a key in it. And there's one room that has a lock. And so you have to go past one of those guard dog things in 3D with Mario, and he unlocks it. And the lock was connected to the chain around the block dog thing's neck. And instead of attacking Mario or Peach, he runs straight for the maid girl and starts to like try to attack her. And Tippy mentions how strange that is, but you just kind of move on. And you go through the locked door, and then you hit a block that ends that chapter. And now you start, and you're still in the mansion, but you're in a different hallway, it seems. And there is a mystery block with this strange looking vase on it, and you have to hit this block to progress in this level. But when you do, that vase will shatter in two on the ground, and then the maid girl comes rushing back in, and she is so mad, and she's talking about how this is her most favoritist vase and how it's so expensive and you could never hope to pay it off, but that you have to. And it's like 1,000,000 rubies, which you do not have in this game. You have coins, but this starts a second meter for rubies instead of coins, and that is the premise of this part in the story. You have to work off this debt. And I will spoil it right now, the maid's name is Mimi, and I already mentioned Mimi. It is the same one, but you didn't see her real form in the beginning. And technically you're still not, but I'll get into that. So you start out in this generator room where you have to jump and hit this block over and over again. And there's this motivational spark across the floor, which will give you health damage if you step on it. So you just have to keep jumping and kind of hope for the best. And this part is very tedious. And then you talk to the guy who's like in charge of this room, and you get a certain amount of rubies depending on how long you jumped for. And there's also like a break room area, and there's one guy hanging out in the corner in 3D mode. Mario has to talk to him, and he will give you information in exchange for, I think, like 500 rubies. Do not quote me on this part, I don't remember the exact amount, but it's like, it's high enough but not crazy. But when you talk to him, he'll give you the code to this other door that was locked previously, and when you get that code, it is another way of earning rubies. And it's still tedious, but it goes by a lot faster than the other one. And so it's basically, there are these hamster wheels on the ceiling, and they refer to them as gerbils instead of hamsters, but I think more people will know what I'm talking about if I say hamster wheel. But they call you like little gerbils when you go in there. But basically you just have to hop in one of these wheels and start running. And I just kind of zone out at this part in the game, and I just hold the like right trigger and run for like 5 minutes and then get out, and then you get like 10,000 rubies or something. And you could conceivably beat the level by just doing this for probably like 30 minutes straight. Instead you can talk to another NPC, and he'll give you a much longer code. And that goes to a door upstairs that you're not supposed to know about yet. But you have to flip to 3D and explore everything. And you find another pixel named Slim. And his ability is that if you press 1, he'll flip you. Like, I have a paper here. So, say this is Paper Mario, right? And Slim makes it so that you're like this. Like, the side of paper, you can't really see yourself. It basically turns him invisible except while you're in motion. It's hard to explain, but it means that when you use Slim, you can phase through things if they're moving at you and there's no other way around it, which is important to get to that room I was talking about. So let's say we have the code at this point. You go upstairs, and there is this system of lasers where they're just kind of moving back and forth, and normally you would just flip to 3D and get around things like this, but you can't. They span the whole screen. So the only way to get through it is to use Slim You go up to the laser, use Slim, and wait until it goes through you, and then you keep going and do the same for the other one, and then you get to that door. So when you get to this door and you use the code that you paid for, then there are actually 1,000,000 rubies behind this door. So you have 1,000,000 plus whatever you earned doing the gerbil or the generator rooms. And then you go down to the room on the far right, and Mimi is in there, and she's behind this like debt collection counter. And you go up to her, she asks why you're there, and you can tell her that you love her is one of the dialogue options. That's not relevant, I just thought it's funny. But you tell her that you want to pay off part of your debt, and she's like, oh, looks like you paid it off in full. Wait, how? Because clearly she did not want you to be able to pay it off. But you do, and she loses it. And then you finally see her true form, which is this creepy spider thing. And I love this animation. I don't know, I'm a weirdo, but it's like she's this cute little thing, and then she like rises and turns upside down, and her head gets all like a crumpled sheet of paper, and she like makes this cracking sound, and then like all these spider legs come out, and it's crazy. But then she explodes into bits. And then you have to use Slim again to get through these like jail bars in the room in 3D, and then you get to the block that ends this chapter. The last chapter in the orange door level is the basement of Merlee's mansion, and you go down, and Merlee's apparition greets you and says that she's not safe here, and she warns you to be careful. You have to do some more puzzle stuff, go through a bunch of doors, and finally you get upstairs again to this different area where Merlee is no longer an apparition, but she's speaking to you. She asks you to sign this contract, and you refuse, and she just keeps offering you like random nonsense items that don't exist in the game. Like, my favorite is she'll offer breadword, a pixel made of yeast and lard or something like that. That does not exist, unfortunately. But you keep refusing, and she gets mad and reveals that she is Mimi. But she goes back into that horrific spider form and starts chasing you around the basement. And I get so gleeful talking about this, but it's my favorite. And you have to like do the puzzle stuff again until you get back to that initial area where the contract stuff happened. And then you go further than you were initially, and there's these bathrooms, like public bathrooms, and you go into the women's one, and Merlee is on either the second or third from the left. I mixed that up, but she's in one of there. She's in the toilet, which is important to the story actually, but she says that she's in there because it's the one place she knew Mimi wouldn't look. But then Mimi comes in and shifts into Merlee, and so now there's two of them, and it's confusing, and they're arguing with each other. And then it opens to this sequence where it's like a game show, and both Merlees are there, and you have to ask them questions to discern which one's the real one. And my favorite is you ask what their favorite animal is, and I think the real Merlee says like a bear cub, but Mimi Merlee says a cute little demon all sweating and steaming. And that's all I wanted to say about that. But there actually is a much easier way to tell, because the real Merlee was hiding in the toilet, and so she actually has flies around her, which you can see. I don't actually know what happens if you pick wrong. I don't think it actually would change anything, but I always pick right because it's very obvious. And then you get into my favorite fight of the game, which is the first fight with Mimi, and she's in her spider form. And I always use Peach for this because she has that defensive ability, and Mimi's main attack is that she shoots rubies at you. And so if you duck using the parasol, they won't hurt you. And you use throw, and you hit Mimi over and over and jump on her head until all her legs fall off. After you beat Mimi, that chapter ends. So sad. Next is another cutscene in Count Bleck's castle, but this time it's with Luigi and two Goombas who are like clearly trying to take advantage of him, and they just want him to lead them out and kind of use him as a meat shield. But he's very susceptible to flattery, so he agrees to this and doesn't think anything of it. And they walk, and they get cornered by Nastasia, much like in the Princess Peach one. But unlike Peach, he does not get transported anywhere, and he ends up successfully getting brainwashed. And then after this, there's another one of those text sequences where you learn the names of the human and the Dark Tribe member. The human is Timpani, Timpani. I'm gonna say Timpani, and if I'm wrong, I'm so sorry. And then there's Blumiere. And they both want to see each other, but it's sort of like a Romeo and Juliet situation where Blumiere's father wouldn't approve, and then that scene ends. So Mario and Peach come back to Flipside with the pure heart and set it in the heart pillar again, and then this opens the yellow door. As you can probably tell by now, the doors have a rainbow color scheme. And the yellow door, I also really love this chapter, but it's for very different reasons. It's just really funny because I'll spoil it. The main boss is basically like a Redditor Discord mod kind of guy. When you go through the yellow door, the first thing that happens is that Tippy gets captured by this big chameleon guy who is just a nerd about butterflies, and he's like, ooh, I'm gonna upload this on my digital butterfly forum. This is sweet. And it's spelled like SCHWEET. He's just a nerd. And then you talk to this pixel that is in the bushes, and his name is Barry, but he doesn't come with you. He's just like, oh, your friend's gone, basically. Like, nobody can beat Francis, who's the chameleon guy. He's like, oh, I'll give you 3 tips though. One is that if you see a red X, blow it up, and you might meet a giant squid monster and torch his red tentacle, and then if you land on red wind, something good may happen. That's basically what he says. It doesn't make sense yet, but as you progress through the platforming part, there are these little fortresses, and there is a red X on the last one, and you use Boomer to blow that up, and then all the fortresses just collapse, and then it's revealed that Bowser actually built these, and he had been displaced to this 8-bit sort of world where all this is, but he was just gonna start anew there with all his remaining minions. Well, you find Bowser and then you beat him. It's pretty easy actually. He's not really a main boss in this game. He actually joins your party, which is cool. And playing as Bowser, it can kind of be OP because he's so heavy. He has double the attack power, and also if you press down, his ability is he has fire breath, so you can do slightly more ranged attacks, and he has just more attack power. His main drawback is his hitbox is so big, and also he is so slow. It is very annoying to use him most of the time, but there is a workaround which I'll get to. And then the next parts, there is a water level, and you get a new pixel named Thudley, and his whole thing is that he just basically gives you the ground pound ability that's present in other Mario games. Then you get out of the water area and you're in this thing called the Dotwood Tree, and this is a nightmare. It's just more platformer and puzzle stuff. I remember it would frustrate me so bad as a kid, but you go up and into this tree, and then that is where you fight Dementio for the first time, and he's not necessarily super hard to beat. He's just kind of annoying because he'll like clone himself, and it's confusing, and it's just kind of tedious to fight him, but once you get it, it's over. But then he has this little scene in the air by himself when he's done fighting where he's like, they're coming along nicely. I think if they get a little stronger, they could actually beat Count Bleck. So it's kind of dubious about him, like he might be a double agent, but we don't know yet. He leaves, and then you continue, and then I use Peach for this, but there are these like swirls of wind, and one of them is red, and so if you remember earlier what Barry said, you jump on it and you can actually sit on that wind, and it will carry you to this pipe, and you go down the pipe, and then that ends that chapter. And then you get to Fort Francis. You start outside of it, and you have to find a key to go in, and there's a sign that says only Francis, other super geniuses, and totally hot babes can go in this castle. So you can tell what kind of guy this is, but you go in there, and there are these robotic cat maid things, and I'm gonna put a picture of it because I feel like if I just say that, it sounds a little creepier than it is. And you have to do some traversing and traveling, and the main objective at this part is that you have to go into he has 2 super secret lairs within the fortresses, and they both have codes to the door, and you have to find these codes. But to do that, you have to actually get the code wrong initially and be sent to this dungeon, and you find another pixel named Carrie, and she's basically a sentient hoverboard, and she is actually my workaround for Bowser being so slow, because she does give a slight speed boost. So if I'm using Bowser a lot, I usually pair him with Carrie if I can. But anyway, you get the codes because they're literally written on the wall, because I guess Francis is an idiot, but that's just game logic. But then you go into the lairs and you get some items and you get some keys. And I'm gonna try to find a picture of the lairs because they're so neckbeard nest coded. I don't know if any of you have seen that subreddit or heard of that phenomenon, but I'll show you. And then in the main corridor, there is another door with 2 keys, and these are the keys that you find in the lairs. But you can actually peek through the keyhole, and you see him keeping Tippy in a cage and taking pictures of her. You have to use Peach to go in because only Francis, super geniuses, and totally hot babes are allowed. But you go in as Peach, and he's like, oh, I don't know how to talk to women. And so he boots up a dating sim. And so now he and Peach are in this dating sim type atmosphere where you control Peach's response, but the game controls Francis's responses. And then eventually, if you pick like the lovey-dovey options for Peach, which is just cruel, but you can, she'll be like, who's picking these for me anyway? And then she'll use it herself, and she'll use Boomer on him and blow up the entire thing. And then it's back to the normal game, and you have to fight Francis. And you beat him, and then you get Tippy back, and yeah. But Tippy is so grateful after this. She's so different, and she becomes a lot more attached to Mario. But she's actually so happy that the pure heart forms from her. Like, her happiness is enough to, like, manifest the next one that you need, and this is the green one. And then after this chapter ends, you get another Count Black cutscene. And they're saying they're gonna make him fight the heroes, and I'll just tell you they're talking about Brainwash Luigi. Anastasia actually, once everyone's gone, expresses some reservations about Count Black's plan and says that he can turn back now, but he adamantly refuses this. He tells her that she can leave, and then she reveals that he like saved her from something and that she's just loyal forever, and so she won't be leaving. And then they leave, and Dementio pops back in and reveals that he was eavesdropping and just drops some smug line like, ooh, they sure have some deep conversations. And then that scene ends. And then there's another scene with the text space between Timpani and Blumiere. It shows that Timpani is compelled to leave him, and it's implied that his father's behind it, and then that scene ends. So now you have Mario, Peach, and Bowser, and they all appear at Flipside Tower when they come back. You find the next heart pillar and the green door opens, and I kind of hate this level. You go in the door and it's revealed that you're in outer space, but the problem is that none of these humans, or Koopas rather, can breathe in space, and so Tippy freaks out and like somehow transports you all back. And you go to Merlin to see if he has a space helmet or something, and he's like, oh man, I was cleaning and I had the perfect thing, but I gave it away to this little boy to use as a fish bowl. And so you have to go upstairs and find this little boy, and he's talking about how he put his fish in there, but the problem is the fish keeps growing, so he's actually going to outgrow that bowl soon too. And so you have to find somewhere else to release the fish so the boy can still visit him, but he'll be happy. And there's this like little body of water, and you put the fish in there, and then you have the bowl, and you use that as a space helmet. So you use the helmet in space, and you have to like kind of swim through it. It's kind of like a water level with the mechanics, but it's in space instead. And you find this SOS signal, and you have to use Tippy's point and click ability to see this spaceship, and this little alien guy comes out of it and just starts proclaiming himself as your captain now. And Tippy's very wary of him like the whole time, but she accepts it because Mario does. You have to charge him up, which sounds strange, but it makes sense in the game. And then he can shoot little lasers out, and that's how you defeat things in space because you can't really jump on anything. And his name is Squirps. So you end the chapter with him, and then the next level you're on a planet, and I don't mind this one as much because I think I just don't like the water mechanics or this like swimming mechanics. It's just kind of irritating to me. But you go on this planet, and Squirps has to go to the bathroom. I'm not making it up, but he has to go to the bathroom really bad, and there's like a porta potty on this planet, but someone's in there, and he's singing about how he needs toilet paper, and he's been in there for like 100 years. And so you have to traverse this planet, and you talk to these alien people, and one at the very end is this elderly guy, and he gives you a clue to find the ancient treasure, and it's talking about like flipping reality by like a rock man's head or something. It's just a puzzle that you figure out, but you go and talk to the guy in the bathroom, and this is so cringe to me, like just on a physical level. You give him the scroll with the clue on it, which is called an ancient scroll, and he uses that as toilet paper. So he comes out and it's a pixel, and his name is Fleep, and his power is kind of confusing, but you press 1 and he opens a little square, and you click and it flips over whatever you highlighted. And there are these little shimmery things that are like tears in the fabric of reality in this game. They're little tiny things, and if you use him on them, it usually reveals something. It just takes a panel out of the universe and flips it around, and sometimes there's items, but sometimes it reveals things like doors or other things you need to progress. And the Rockman clue thing, there's this structure with faces on it. It's a rock, and you use Fleep above it on this one of those tear things, and it reveals the way out of that level, and then the chapter ends. And then, oh my gosh, it's so annoying. This level, you have to do more space swimming, and there are all these little portal things, and you have to like try to not get lost. And then you find this thing called a space gate where you squeeze squirps into it and you open it, and then there's another space gate, and there's 2 holes in it. And it's very much like the enigma of Amigara Fault by Junji Ito to me, because Squirps is like very compelled by these holes that are shaped like him, and he just wants to go in there. If you know, you know. But anyway, so there's 2 this time though, which is confusing. And he says that he's hungry, and that's literally the whole objective, is that you have to traverse these stupid annoying little portals until you find a space gas station that sells chocolate, because that is the only thing Squirps wants to eat. And then you have to find your way back to him and give him this chocolate, and he'll get so happy that he duplicates himself, and then the gate opens, and that finally ends this hell. No, I'm kidding. That finally ends the chapter. But I actually don't know if I dislike that one or the next one the most, because the next one is the Woe Zone, or like the Space Bypass or something like that. But it's just some puzzle platformer stuff, but it's like very annoying and has to do with a lot of perspective changes. And you can do it, but it's just tedious to me. And at the end you fight Mr. L, who is actually just brainwashed Luigi, but it's like a Superman situation, like nobody can tell because he has a little mask on. You beat him, and you have to do some like Space Invaders type gameplay where you just like shoot at him in space when he's in a giant mech. And it's called Brobot, and it's very strange. But you beat him, and that's the end, finally. But then you go through this room with Squirps, and he's like, let me introduce you to my mom. And you go in, and there's this big statue of his mom, and it reveals that he is actually the Prince of Squirpia. The statue like produces the pure heart for you guys, and it's all revealed that he was prophesied to escort the heroes through the Woe Zone and everything like that. But you finally get done with that space level, and some people like it, I'm sure. I just don't. One thing that's like sort of notable about it though, this is really off topic, it's not part of the plot, but one of the design elements on that little planet is there are these stars, and they have little rainbow sprinkles on them. It's not real, they're not edible or anything, but they look like cookies, and my mom and I both thought so when I was little, and one time we made cookies in the shape of stars to match that level, and I want to do that again someday. But anyway, moving on. Then there is another Bleck cutscene, and this time Mr. L is among the ranks of the minions on their little shelves, and he's being all smug, and the other minions point out that he also got defeated, so he should probably chill out on that. And Mimi's in a cute little pink dress here. She has outfit changes throughout the game, and I just like that. But anyway, Bleck decides to send Ochunks again to beat Mario, and then everyone leaves except Count Bleck and Nastasia again. Nastasia's being all wistful, and she's like, no one cherished the universe as much as you once did. Then Bleck just shuts her down, and she muses about how she wishes she could have been that girl, and then Bleck is like, that's enough, Nastasia. You can never hope to replace her. And then there's another cutscene, and it's Bluemere proposing to Timpani. and he's offering to find a universe where they can be together in peace. They get back and Tippy's acting weird and like lovey-dovey, but then she suddenly collapses to the ground. And so Merlin carries her back to his house and explains that she might not be able to maintain her pixel form much longer, which is confusing at this point because you've never heard of her being anything else. But she apparently was found by Merlin very injured and exhausted, wandering dimensions forever, and he took a drastic measure to keep her alive by transforming her into a pixel, and she lost all of her memories. But he decides that he's gonna keep her just to keep an eye on her, and so you have to keep going and find the heart pillar. And this one is in flop side, which I've been talking about flip side, but there is flop side as well. And you find this by using Fleep in one of those tears in reality in flip side, and it reveals this big hall kind of thing, but it's outside. I don't know what you'd call that, honestly, but you have to be in 3D and go across it, and then you go into the hall of mirrors, and you have to hit all of these colorful blocks in there, and then the mirror shatters, and you can flip and go through it to the other side, and then open the door, and it's just like this mirrored version of flip side, but everything's different because it's more dilapidated, and the color scheme's just slightly shifted. It's very cool to me. And the music even is like similar but not the same. When you go upstairs into Flopside, there is another wizard guy named Nolrem, which is just Merlin backwards, and he looks the same but different colors. And he explains that there's a front and back to all things, and that's why like Flopside and Flipside both exist. This heart pillar is the same as the first one, but everything's mirrored, so it's on the other side. I always use the return pipe to go back after I find a heart pillar because it transports you right to the tower. But you go back to Flipside Tower and Merlin's there with Tippy and explains that he was able to revive her, and she is very adamant about coming with you despite everyone being worried about her. And then there's a light blue door, as you may have guessed, with the rainbow scheme. When you go into the light blue door, you're in Cragnon, and it is like this desert cave prehistoric type area, and the Cragnons are a race of people who are like cave people, but they also talk like surfers. It's very interesting, and their whole thing is they're being terrorized by these plant people called Florosapiens. They look like sunflowers kinda. I'll show you a picture, but they're being like terrorized and their villagers are being kidnapped by these things, and so you have to follow a group of Florosapiens carrying some Cragnons, and you follow them further into like this desert area again, and you have to find these tablets and set them in this stone thing, and once you find the right order, then you actually get another pixel named Cudge, who is a hammer, and it's one of those big yellow blocks that the Florosapiens covered a pipe with, and so you destroy that block and then a pipe appears and you go down and you're able to follow the villagers and Florosapiens again. In this level you meet Ochunks again, and he's still just as easy to beat despite Dementio giving him some magic, but it's basically the same as the first time you fight him. And then you follow the Florosapiens down this pipe, and that leads to the end of the chapter. Then you're in some mines, and there's this guy named Flint Cragley, and he's like a documentary maker, like an adventurer type, and he lost his film crew, and so now your objective is to find his like mic guy and the sound guy in the mines, and it's just some puzzle stuff, and you find them, reunite them, and then go through a locked door, and then you meet a bunch of brainwashed Cragnons, and you have to avoid fighting them even though they will be hostile and attack you, because you'll actually lose score points if you kill them, and score points help you level up your attack and your health and stuff. You end up meeting another pixel here named Dottie, who shrinks you down to miniature size, and you use this ability to sneak past this processing plant and get some items, but you also fight Ochunks again, only now he is possessed by the Florosapien sprout thing, which is what they're using to mind control all the Cragnons. And so now his name is O'Cabbage, and Dementio did this to him, and you fight him. It's the same as always, except now his sprout falls off his head, and Tippy mentions that it looks like it's wilting, and so it probably doesn't have the same power, and you'll probably be fine if you wear it. And then you wear it, and that helps you past the screening into the other place in the facility, and then you fight King Crocus. There are 3 kings and a queen of this place, and he is the 4th, King Crocus the 4th. And then you beat him, and he wilts. And then some Florosapiens come in, and they're like, "You just wilted our king. What's wrong with you?" And they explain that the Kragnons had been polluting their water by throwing trash in it, and that's why they were mad. But they just patch things up now. And the Kragnons say, "Oh, sorry, we didn't know. We'll stop doing that." And then they're all good, and they give you the pure heart. Then there's another minion cutscene. Ochunks is being made to repeat a motivational song 1,000 times for losing in battle. Mimi and Mr. L, aka Luigi, are itching to go fight again. Nastasia orders them to stay because the Count wants them to, but then Dementio comes in and manipulates them by being like, "Well, I bet the Count would actually be happier if you disobeyed and beat the heroes, because that would be ultimately what he wants." So he's just encouraging them to disobey, but they're like, yeah, you're right, let's go. We gotta go do something. So everyone goes, and then there's another Bloomier and Timpani scene. It's just them like having a nice moment together. There's not really much to say about that one. Okay, so you find the next heart pillar, and then there's a dark blue door, and you're in the Samurai kingdom. The king greets you, and he says that you need to defeat his samurai in battle, and then the reward for this is a pure heart. And if you have played the 1,000-Year Door, it's kind of reminiscent of the wrestling tournament situation. To go through this, you have to fight a good number of them, I think like 20 or 25 or so. But then the void gets a lot bigger, because the void has been growing this entire time throughout the game, and it was bigger in this world to start with than it is in Flipside, but then there's tremors that start going through the world, and so it's clear that this world is really close to being destroyed. And so all of the samurai past the 20 mark or whatever are like kneeling by their swords, and they just let you pass. You don't have to fight anymore, but you just have to like go through the gates. The king is there again, and he's like, "Well, considering the circumstances, you still won, so go ahead, claim your prize." And so you open the treasure chest expecting the pure heart, but oh no, it's not the king, it's Mimi. Imagine that. And she's like, "You really think I would let you get the pure heart, blah blah blah." And you have to fight her, and she's in a cute little outfit, but anyway. But you fight her again, and when you beat her, she reveals that she was really just wasting your time. But the void expands again, the controller starts shaking, all this stuff, and then you appear outside the door. And Tippy says that she thinks you should go back in, so you do, but everything is white now. Like, there's just a line where you're walking along the ground, and occasionally the further you walk, there are like little set pieces, but they're just the outlines, and it's basically just this nothing world, and there's not really music playing anymore either. But I just use carry for this because you do just have to walk for like a while in this empty place till you find the fossilized pure heart. Like, it's still there, but it's just completely gray. It's stone. But Mr. L is there, and he beats you to it, and you have to fight the whole Brobot situation again, but this time you have to attack the feet of it, because originally it was just the head and like some fists, but now it has legs and you have to attack those, and it's not like the most difficult thing, but it is just annoying. But you beat him, and that's that. You get the fossilized pure heart. And Mr. L is alone, and he's lamenting. And then Dementio pops in, this guy again. He traps Mr. L in a box and lights it on fire. Like, this guy is gone. It's crazy. And then he says he will send the heroes his way next, so that's ominous. There's a cutscene where Nastasia tells Count Bleck that Mr. L and Mimi both left, and he's just kind of uninterested in the whole thing, and he tells her to just handle it. She asks if something has changed, because he is seeming off, but he says no, and then he tells her to leave. And then he questions if Tippy was Timpani. But then he tells himself that that can't be true, and that even if it is, not even he can stop any of this now. So that's not good. Another text scene happens, and this reveals that Timpani has been sent away by Bluemier's father, and he calls Timpani like a dirty human and like says that their kinds can't mix. So there's like clearly some fantasy racism and Romeo and Juliet type stuff going on, but that's that scene. So Mario, Peach, and Bowser all return to Flipside, and they don't know what to do with this stone heart because this hasn't happened yet. And so they go to Merlin to see if he knows what to do. But Dementio pops in and he just starts taunting everybody, being annoying. And he traps Peach, Mario, and Bowser in these little fireboxes again, like he did with Luigi or Mr. L. And he just sends them all wherever they go when they're dead, I guess, because he just killed these people. And he just pops back out like, bye guys, good luck. The game would not progress if this actually got rid of them. And Mario wakes up all alone and he's basically in hell in this part. Like, actually, I'm not joking. I'll put a picture of the set design next to me again. It's called the underwear, but wear is spelled like the location type of wear, not like undergarments. But he's alone. You can't access Peach or Bowser, and you can't use Tippy or any of the pixels. Mario's just by himself. And he walks to the right, and there's like this fountain that regenerates your health, and that's pretty cool. And then he just has to do some puzzle platform stuff until he talks to Queen Jades, who is the ruler of the underwear. And she's very interested in the like fossilized pure heart and wants to hold on to it and doesn't really take no for an answer. But she says that she will give it back if he returns a lost Nimby named Lovebee to her, because she belongs in the over there, which is like the equivalent of heaven. So she gives him this door key and also mentions that it seems like someone fell in the River Twigs, which is this river that you had to traverse to go see her in the first place. And then this is where you find Luigi for the first time in the game, because it keeps mentioning there are 4 heroes, but you only had Peach and Bowser. We find Luigi, and he's himself again. He's not Mr. L or anything like that. But his ability is that he can jump really, really high. Mario and Luigi go and find Lovebee. And she is disgusted with them because her whole thing is she's looking for her prince. And she is she's like a young, naive, hopeless romantic looking for her prince, but she's also pretty sassy. And she's like, you guys are old and hairy and you are not my prince. They tell her her name correctly and she's like, you knew my name, so it must be. But she's mad about it. And she goes to Queen Jade's by herself to like complain, I guess. Mario and Luigi go back to her and it's revealed that she's actually Lovebee's mom. And at this point, she gives them the pure heart, which has been revitalized, so it looks normal again. She returns them to Flipside at this point, too, because you couldn't go back. You didn't have anything initially. Princess Peach and Bowser are still gone, though. So Mario and Luigi put the heart in the heart pillar, and then the purple door opens. When they go in it, it takes them back to where they just were in the underwear, because initially they were sent there because they were, like, sort of dead. That's why Queen Jade sent them back. So they go talk to her again, and she says that they need to talk to Granby, the ruler of the over there, but she has a favor to ask, and she wants them to take Lovebee with them to go see Granby, because apparently some monsters got released, so it's dangerous for her to go alone right now. So they head through this door and they have to keep going upwards through this annoying puzzle staircase and like talking to these cursed doors that ask them questions and stuff. But then in the middle of one landing, you find Bowser again, and he's all emotional and mad, and he thinks that this whole thing has been a ploy to like get him away from Princess Peach. He's not very rational all the time, so you have to fight him again, but when you do, he rejoins your party. And then this is very good because he can light these torches that are around the place, and so these levels are cloaked in darkness, but when you use Bowser you can actually see like a normal level, so that's very helpful. But then at the last cursed door there's a thing called the Underchomp, which is like a chain chomp, but it's that and Cerberus basically, but it's the only turn-based combat situation in the game. And if you have, there's a bonus pixel called Piccolo, and if you have him you can put the Underchomp to sleep, but if you don't you just fight him normally, and if you use Bowser it's pretty easy. But then the chapter ends and now they're in the over there, and they're in the over there stair, which is more platform stuff, but now the background's like a cloudy area and it's very like stereotypical heavenly, and Lovebee's still following them. And then this is where they find Peach, and she's sleeping under this apple tree, and she has eaten this yellow apple, and apparently this apple is so good that if someone eats it they can become so satisfied that they just sleep like for a long time, but they don't have that long to wait. It's said that there is a taboo fruit. This can counteract the effects of the yellow apple, and that's the puzzle of this game, is finding this fruit. But they find it, feed it to her, she wakes up, she's like, ew, what did you just feed me? But now she's back in the party, which is very good because I love her. But then after they reach the over there, it seems that there are still some monsters taking over, and it's this whole situation, and a bunch of nimbies are frozen, and Bowser can get them out using the fire breath. And you have to talk to a few higher ups there, and they give you these orbs, and this bridge is formed so you can go talk to Granby. But then Granby is in peril because there is this ice dragon thing named Bone Chill, and he seems to be the main monster behind all this. But he's also just kind of a jerk because he reveals that Loveby is the pure heart and that he is not actually Granby and Jade's daughter at all. And obviously this stirs up some feelings in her. She's like, what are you talking about? This can't be true. And Tippy's basically like, hey, we don't have time to worry about this right now. We have to fight this thing. Like, go take Granby to safety. And so she does, and you fight Bone Chill, and it's fine. But then Bone Chill's gone, and Granby and Jade's come in, and Loveby's there. And they're having this, like, family moment, and Loveby's having a lot of mood swings and strong emotions about this because she just, like, found out some earth-shattering news. But it turns out that she is the next pure heart. They transformed the heart into her to keep it safe, but then they grew to actually love her as a daughter. And so she has to sacrifice herself to revert to her pure heart form. And it's very sad and bittersweet. And she says that she hates Granby and Jade's, but then at the end she's like, I lied, I love you guys. And it's so sad. That part makes me cry. Next, you can probably guess it's a pattern at this point. There's another minion cutscene. It's fairly simple. Dementio is there with Count Bleck, and he asks if the name Blumiere rings a bell. And this upsets him, but Dementio leaves. Anastasia calls him Blumiere, trying to get him to like snap out of it and reverse the prophecy. But he just laughs and he's like, Blumiere's dead now. There's only Count Bleck now. And, you know, dramatic. The last text sequence shows Blumiere opening the Dark Prognosticus, which is this whole dark prophecy that he's been going by, and his father's begging him not to, but he does anyway. And then this is him transforming into Count Bleck, which is the antagonist we know now. When they're back in Flipside, Tippy is having her little moment, and she's dreaming and talking to Blumiere and calling him darling. And then she wakes up to her team, like Mario, Peach, Bowser, Luigi. They're all very confused by this because they've never heard of whoever Blumiere is, but she just kind of brushes it off and is being annoying and vague about it and not really saying anything, and she just apologizes and they move on. Now you put the last pure heart in the pure heart pillar, and this actually opens a black door on the flop side tower rather than the flip side one, and this is, as you may guess, the very last level. And I do not like this level because all it is mostly platform puzzle shenanigans, but it's very convoluted and maze-like and just tedious and annoying. But to make it worse, it is that monochromatic castle, and so it's kind of hard to even see things sometimes. It's difficult on purpose, but you know. Basically, the way it goes is there's platform puzzle shenanigans, and then Chunks is there, and he fights Bowser specifically. And then the ceiling starts falling, and so Chunks sacrifices himself to keep it held up, but Bowser also decides to step in because he can't be out machoed by this guy, and so he like starts holding it up as well, and then you can't play as Bowser anymore, and so you have to just keep going. And then in the next part, Merlin is there for some reason, and he's like, why don't you press this totally normal blue switch? And so you do, and it's a trap, and it's a whole thing. And then it ends with Peach having to fight Mimi, and then they both sacrifice each other somehow. It's very much like blah blah blah, power of friendship type stuff, but then the point is you can't play as Peach anymore after this, and so Mario and Luigi keep going. And then there is Dementio, and he is revealing that the Count betrayed him by lying and saying that he'd create a perfect world for the minions in him to like live out their days, but he really intends to destroy everything. And Dementio's not really down for that. They still refuse to work with him. But when you refuse, that's when Luigi has to fight him and takes them on this wild goose chase where they have to use Fleep to like teleport to next locations. And he takes them through every single door level, not the whole thing obviously, but like just a stage in every single level you've already been to, and then they end up back at the castle, and then Luigi has to fight him. And obviously he doesn't really take that well when he loses. He's a sore loser about it. And so he just like kills both him and Luigi in one of those fireboxes again. Can't use Luigi anymore, so now for the rest of it it's just Mario. And I hated these last puzzles, I really did, because these are the really tedious ones, because of course it's the last chapter and it's just Mario by himself. But finally, when you finish these, you make it to this save block and there's like an item, and then this is where you go fight Count Bleck. And initially he has a force field around him, so you can't do anything to him. But then Peach and Bowser come back in, and Luigi does too, and so you can use all them again. And the pure heart, like, his combine the forces of friendship, so now his invincibility is gone, and so you can beat him. When you defeat him, he turns into this like crumpled heap on the ground. I'll put a picture. And then Dimencio pops back in, and he like possesses Luigi and makes him be Mr. L again with the Chaos Heart, because it's apparently in the Dark Prognosticus that the man in green is the one who can wield the power of it or something. But Brobot is back, and so now you have to defeat that again after already having to defeat Count Bleck, and Count Bleck's not really for it anymore because he's been beat fair and square, so now he's fine. But when you defeat Brobot, Mr. L, that's it for Dimencio. But they're defeated, and then it's strange because he's gone, but the void's still there, the tremors are still happening, and everyone's like, why is this still happening? Is there no way to reverse it? But then they all go through this door, except Dimencio. But Mimi's there, Ochunks is there, Mario, Peach, Bowser, Luigi, everybody. Now they're in this lighter place, and Count Bleck and Tippy go up to this altar, and it's revealed by now that they are in fact Blumiere and Timpani, and they're talking about like, do you still love me? Yes, I still love you. And then this bell starts tolling, which is like the universe approving of their union. And all of the worlds come back. The void is gone. Even the Samurai Kingdom, which was completely wiped out, comes back. This part makes me cry, but I'm also just a sensitive girl. They banish the Chaos Heart with the power of love. It's very predictable, but it still gets me. And they both vanish together to be in their own version of paradise. So there's no more Tippy or Count Bleck or Blumiere, but they're happy together. The end title card has like a little silhouette picture of them together, and I'll put that here too. But that is basically the end of the plot. I know that took a long time, but oh my gosh. I will now get into other things like bonus stuff. So there are some fun hidden things. I was talking about the pixels. There are 8 pixels. Throw, Boomer, Slim, Thudley, Carrie, Fleep, Cudge, Dottie. There's technically 9 because Tippy is a pixel for most of the game. But there are 3 bonus ones. There's Barry, the one you talk to in the yellow door, because if you go back after you beat Francis through the yellow door, you can talk to him again and he'll join you. And his thing is that he creates this spiky barrier around you. And there's Piccolo, who I talked about, and the way to get him is that you have to go through this like series of fetch quests, which is kind of tedious, but it's whatever, and you get him. And then there's Dashel, and he makes it so that if you hold 1 you run fast, and he is actually going to be a perfect segue, because the way you get him is he is a reward for beating the Pit of 100 Trials in Flipside. And I could be wrong about this. I believe there is a Pit of 100 Trials in the 1000-Year Door, but I hadn't played that until last year, and I haven't actually finished it, which is I need to do that, I really do. But I think from what I've seen there is one there too, but don't quote me on that. But anyway, the pit in this game, you can do it when you have Luigi, because you can jump on the blocks and hit a switch, which makes the pipe come out. And it's basically like a dungeon crawl type thing, where it's just a series of rooms. There are 100 rooms, but technically, if you want to be a nerd about it, there's only 90 or 91 rooms where there are battles, because every 10 rooms, except for 100, it's a warp pipe back to Flipside and a treasure chest containing a card of a pixel or companion. And sometimes there's a chance that Flim, the shady sales guy, is there and he can sell you things like attack items or health items, but he's not always there. But in most of the rooms, there are just a bunch of enemies, and then there's a door with a lock on it, and you have to kill enemies until one produces a key. And you don't know which one's going to have it, and sometimes you have to kill all of them to find it. Sometimes it's like the first one. It really just depends. But there's a 5-minute time limit for each room, and you get the key, go through the locked door, it takes you to the next one, same thing. And the enemies just get like progressively harder until you get to the 100th room. And this one is a big field, and you have to fight Racktail, which is basically a recolor of Fractail from the beginning, except he is a little harder because he has more damage that he could do to you. And it's very frustrating to lose to him, especially after doing like 99 rooms. But if you beat him, you get Dashel joining your party. But if you do lose, you have to redo everything. Also, if you leave through the warp pipe, you have to redo everything too. And then there's also a Pit of 100 Trials in Flopside, which is exponentially more annoying. The enemies are shadow versions of themselves, and they have higher defense points, so you need more attack power to actually defeat them. And not only that, but when you get to the end of it, there is a pipe that appears and a voice saying that if you want to prove you're worthy in the real heroes, you have to do it again, and he won't fight you. The boss, you can't see the boss yet, but the boss won't fight you unless you do it again. So you actually do have to complete the Flopside pit twice and then fight Shadow, which takes the form of all your party members in shadow form, and it's like a 4-phase battle. And if you touch him at all in any form, he will immediately decrease your health by 10 points, and it's very frustrating. I will say I was able to beat it first try. I mean, technically second because you do have to redo it, but you know what I mean. I didn't have to do it any additional times than necessary. And this is kind of unnecessary on my part, but I do have a tip for this, and it's that if you get a shroom shake and a fire burst and go to the Flopside kitchen, which is called Hot Frown, and the chef there is Dillis, I think. But with Saffron, the other chef, you give her 1 item, but with Dillis, you give her 2 to combine. But if you combine those 2 items, you get an emergency ration, which says that it replenishes your HP by only 10 points. But it doesn't say this anywhere. It is a secret. But if you use that while you're in the pit, it gives you 50 HP. And so what I did is I just stocked my pockets with literally nothing but emergency rations, and it does take a little bit of time to like collect all the resources for that, but just make use of, in the shops you can store items, so just make use of the shop storage, and then it's pretty simple from there. But once your pocket's full, that really saved me, and at the end I still had like 5 left, so I did pretty good, I think. And then for the strategy as well, I usually use Peach and Boomer to be more defensive, but if I want to be more offensive, I use Bowser and Carrie because he is very OP, especially if you beat it, you get a ton of attack power with him, and so it makes everything so much easier. Anyway, if you asked me what my favorite game was, I would probably answer with this one because I love it so much. I love so many of the characters, and specifically this iteration of Princess Peach is my favorite across the whole Mario franchise. My other favorite characters are Mimi and Lovebee in this game, but I love so many of them. They're so charming to me. I do have some specific gripes about the game, but honestly it's mostly my problem because I am the type where if I play a game, it's usually for escapism and because I want to do something fun. And some of the more like maze-like parts of the game do just frustrate me, and I just kind of don't want to think that hard if I'm playing a game. But it's very doable, and I am smart enough to figure it out, but sometimes I do just get frustrated, and that's really my only issue, is that some of the levels just feel more tedious to me specifically. Now, here are the things that I remember from childhood that aren't just like part of the plot. Like, I remember loving the orange door specifically so much. I mentioned that already, but I would get so excited and like proud of myself when I would beat Mimi, because she was like the first boss as a kid that I would beat consistently on my own, and that was so exciting to me. I felt so accomplished. And then of course there's the space cookie thing. I remember that. And I remember like writing down the door codes and stuff on actual like legal pads with pen, and it felt so important and official. And I'm sure if I still lived in my old house, those would probably still be floating around somewhere. And I would never beat the Pit of 100 Trials as a kid, because it was just like, to me, it didn't feel worth it at the time, because in my kid brain, I was like, well, this is just hard and I don't have to do it, so I'm not going to. But I remember like I would walk in and my mom would be playing it, and she would love the Pit of 100 Trials. I mean, I get it more now as an adult, but she would just be like zen kind of. She'd just be going through it, like listening to something, and I get it now. But really, it's hard to pinpoint for me why I like the game so much, and I think part of it definitely is nostalgia, because I played this game probably like 30 times as a kid, and that being said, I've only finished it probably 4 times, and recently, like, I just finished it yesterday for the first time as an adult, so that's kind of crazy. Like, Mario's a very popular franchise and very mainstream. Like, the average person on the street knows who Mario is, even if they've never played a Mario game. But with this one, it does feel more niche, because I don't think I've ever had a conversation with someone about video games and they've like known this game in real life. And I'm not saying this is like the most unknown game of all time, just in my personal experience. Like, I just don't hear this game come up in casual conversation, and in fact the only times I've seen it come up online are usually negative. I don't know why, but a lot of people don't like this one as much. It might be because some people just don't like the mechanics of this one, I guess. I don't relate, but I don't know. I can't speak for them. There's like an even more niche subsection of people who just really like Dementio in particular, and I think that's just because like the Tumblr crowd kind of has a thing with jesters. And not my thing, but I'm not judging. So there's like a Dementio fandom in the midst of Super Paper Mario fandom. But yeah, I love the story. I love the love story. I love love. Even though it's very tropey, I just think it's cute, and it still gets to me. I love the bittersweet ending of them like disappearing from everyone, but still being happy together and having to like grapple with both feelings of that. I think really the recurring theme of my video game videos, I know there's only 2 right now, but the recurring theme is I love games that are emotional and they make me feel things, but they're not too heavy-handed with it. It's like the art style and the franchise almost gives a buffer. I'm not comparing these games, but like The Last of Us, for example, is a very emotional game. Very amazing game. I'm not comparing them, I promise. But like with that one, the fact that it's set up in like a version of the real world kind of gives you more context right off the bat, and so it's easier to connect with it, and it's almost easier to make you feel things because you can put yourself in that situation. But with something like a cartoon, just the contrast of like the light and dark, like that is a very prominent theme in the game, like with the light and dark prognosticus, but with that dichotomy it kind of makes it hit harder for me in a way, and it's just nice. I like when games marketed towards children still make me feel things, and they did back then too. It's like, I love when games are truly all ages, and I love when things can give you an emotional catharsis without having to rely on the context of already being in a harsh world. But it just reminds me of like the nuance I have as a person, because like look around me, I obviously like cute and lighthearted things, but I'm also a huge horror fan. And it's like we just have these different sides that exist within each other and ourselves, and I don't know. I'm being very contrived right now. But really, this game is just very important to me. It is my favorite game. I don't care if it's the best Paper Mario game or the best Mario game to everyone else. To me, it just is. It's my favorite, and I have such a deep love for it. I had been replaying it the past few days, and oh my gosh, I was so like hyper focused on it. I'd be at work and I'm just like, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to play Super Paper Mario so bad. And it like, I hadn't really fixated on a game like that in a while, and it felt good. It did. It reminded me of being a kid at school wanting to go home and play it. It was, I don't know, it was just cute in a way. If you have access to a Wii or this game, I really do recommend it. If not, there are plenty of walkthroughs and stuff that don't have commentary over them on YouTube. I recommend just looking it up if you're interested at all. Thank you so much for watching. This is the outro. As I was talking about in my last video, I do plan to alternate videos like this with more personal content, and I actually do have my next video, my more personal one, scripted already. That one might not be everyone's thing. It's going to be about my experience as a neurodivergent woman and employment, and it might sound a little boring, and it might be a little boring, but I think it could help somebody, so I'm gonna post it anyway. It's not done yet, but you'll see it when you see it. I really appreciate all of the support so far, so thank you guys. If you have any questions about the game, my channel, or any suggestions for future videos, please leave them in the comments. I would love that. And thank you so much again, beautiful angels. I hope you have a great day or night wherever you are.